matches, and it was great to hear it again from them, even in some of the interviews and everything. So that makes me wonder, like, if as a big question mark every single time is like, how is it in this part of the world? Because again, I don't want to say we're like spoiled or anything, but it's like Southeast Asian teams have the luxury of just focusing on MLBB. And so far from the interviews with all these teams from the African Online qualifiers, we hear that that's not obviously the case for them. They have to schedule the timeout.
So we'll see exactly how that pans out for us here as we take a look at the main five coming through for Djibouti. Am I saying it right?
I believe, you can
Djibouti.
say it how you want, Eterna.
Okay. We have Soraya 22, Sosain, Mawaheb, Dexy, as well as Oboro Kwon. Now, I'm wondering who's going to be playing where, who's going to be in the jungle, who's going to be in the mid lane. And I hope we get to know them a little bit better, their play styles, what kind of heroes they like to go for. Because again, right, like you mentioned, there are so many unorthodox picks that we've been seeing. We'll be seeing something even crazier today, right? Because I think Yin in the Rome, I've seen that in the rankings, but like Hellcurt mid.
The craziest Hellcurt we've seen is what? Maybe like Hellcurt Rome in your part of the world, right? Beliski pulling that through. So when we saw it in the mid, that was a whole different thing. And really when you look at the lineups here, just like back in day one for the qualifiers here, you're just left with wondering, what is how do these guys play? What roles are they going to fit? Because even when you see like this lineup from Egypt, Selecta, its names Nucci, Velvet, Sunlight. I gotta say, this is a lot easier to pronounce here than the previous lineup from Djibouti. But the thing is even when we see the little glimpse of like from day one where people were fitting into their roles, they full on switched on some of the lineups. So that's
like roles.
Like roles, yes, roles. They actually Djibouti was one of them too. Like they did role swaps and everything. So that's a dynamic that, again, I was saying we don't see all the time, because typically when you're watching, MLBB in esports, those roles are like locked in. There are some flexes here and there, and they leave that as a curveball. But like even on day two, I think it was day two, we saw a full like 4-man role swap. So again, as we look at the lineups here, it's more so like kind of just trying to understand again how the play style is going to switch over to the women's, and then how do they bring it to the table? How do they execute it? Is it going to be different? Is there as much variability or flexibility that we saw even in the men's games?
Like honestly, you can think about it this way, right? Because if you guys can flex your roles that fluidly, that actually is kind of a, what would you call it, Naisu? It's like it's
an advantage.
Ace card.
Ace card.
To catch your opponent off guard, right? Because let's say they have like information on you as a mid laner, and then they're like preparing for it, but then suddenly they go into the game and they're like, wait, what is this roster swap? We're not comfortable, we're not familiar with how this particular person plays in a different role. What's their playstyle? Are they more aggressive in the early game? Are they a little bit more passive? Do they focus more on objectives? Like what's the playstyle that's going on? And I think that can be utilized as an edge to their gameplay. Well, it's technically a double-edged sword, but if you want to think about it in a certain light, then that's something that you guys can actually bring as one of your ace cards up your sleeve.
Ace cards up your sleeve, and so far, to be honest, Eternal, we've seen a lot of those kind of niche picks, ace cards, whatever you want to call it. That's why I was saying too, I wanted to know if, like, we even asked this in some of the interviews. I know we've got some time to talk here because we did get word that the women's teams are going to be still setting some things up. So we're going to go ahead and continue on kind of theorizing here exactly what we're going to see. And going back again, part of it in the interviews were the flexibility of having these ace cards up their sleeve, I think, is a huge advantage. And part of that, too, is some of what we heard anyway from the men's teams was that, they did hold on to some of the strategies. Like they wanted to, for example, perfect example right here. Hanzo was constantly banned out from like day one, day two. And then I would say Hanzo and Harley were continuing being banned out. And that Hanzo ban was actually towards a player named Killuane. And who knows what other great, African players are out there that love these assassins. But that's what we were asking. And we heard, like, you know what? There was actually a moment where they could have locked in the Hanzo. Like, it was open, hovered over it, teased us a little bit. And then it was like a fast switch. I think it was an Akai that they went to. And, Killuane was just like, because we asked Killuane specifically about this, and he was just like, yeah, he could have picked it up. It's a huge favorite of his. There's a reason why it was constantly banned out. But he went with a better pick for the team, the lineup, right? And so that's one thing that's great is, like, there is this flavor from these African teams that is their play style, their meta, because that was, verbatim as well. We have a specific meta, and they play it well, and they do. And, I think part of it is, again, how deep does that hero pool go for all these players? Because I feel like it does go pretty deep compared to what we're used to seeing. But even with, like, the a la carte popping up in the previous series, they made that work really well. So I would love to see this. I consider it like creativity, really, because the way that they're building out these team compositions. Again, we are just naturally so used to seeing, like, go through a draft and be like, oh, Louis Yi's open, Chip's open.
Yeah.
They're going to grab it first pick, and then it doesn't happen. It's like something completely left field. That, for me, again, is like a refreshing thing, and I love to see it from their meta here. And that's why I asked you earlier, too, going from casting some of these major women's tournaments, do you more so see that flexibility, that creativity between those teams, or do you still see a lot of these female teams also just running with more meta-based teams, and play styles?
It felt a little 50-50 for me, right? Because there are some picks that maybe other regions would consider unorthodox, but I'm used to seeing in my region, right, in Indo, like Charisla mid was something that we saw a few
Yeah,
times.
I heard.
Yeah, at MPL ID with Swalo utilizing it in the mid lane from Rebellion. But we actually saw that as well during SVS in the female scene as well. Charisla was flexed into the mid lane. And it just really depends, right? For me, like
Yeah.
it's like this is actually something I learned from the Philippines, right? You know the meta so well that you can actually kind of theorize outside of the box. Like when you know the rules so well, you know how to break it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of seeing as well in the female scene earlier on. So yeah, Charisma mid was something that we saw often. Chip and Louis was still
Still
prioritized.
the way to go.
Harith
Yeah.
still prioritized. We saw a lot of Matildas, which is something
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't really see too much in Indo. It was very like player based, right? If it was open
Yeah.
for heroes, if it was open for players like Beloyski, then obviously the Matilda would be picked up. What else was kind of weird? Natan was something that kind of lost its value in MPL ID, but I saw it through again. Have you been seeing a lot of Natans in the gold lane?
It's funny. We actually have so far for the past 2 days here for the African qualifiers. We've seen it pop up in the gold lane actually a couple times, and it's hit its timings, which is usually right around that 8 to 9 minute mark. If the Holy Crystal's locked in, they're gonna pop off, and that's why I think, like, when you talk about gold lane, what we've seen so far here in the gold lane is already different than what we're so used to, like what you were talking about. You're so used to seeing certain things, but like we're talking about, I mean, Harith is still great, still pops up, but it's left open a lot though. Not only that, but like Clint has come through now a couple times. Nathan, like you mentioned, Mozkov is the one that I would say has kind of like fallen off, from like where we were in a position before where like Mozkov was picked up all the time in the gold lane. It was, I don't know, I'm not sure about you guys over there, but it was like either Mozkov or like Claude.
Yeah.
We have yet to see like a Claude and a Mozkov. I think now that I think of it, I don't think we've seen Claude or Mozkov pop up in the gold lane yet.
At all throughout this entire 2 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because
that's what
we
it's
were
fun.
so used to seeing, right?
Yeah.
what do you think about the Natan, right? Because I guess it really depends on different regions, because I feel like you can kind of stereotype different regions with a particular play style, right? With the Philippines, they're very objective centered, they're very neutral objective centered, they're very macro
Very fun,
heavy.
right?
Yeah, it's the mind games. The analyzing
Uh-huh.
the mind games is fun. But for Indo, everything is very quick, right? Everybody loves team fights. Everybody loves getting into the action. People love kills so much. So heroes like the Natan don't necessarily do too well because it requires a little bit more time for it to scale into the late game, which is what other heroes kind of have an advantage because they get that power spike a lot quicker than the Natan. So usually, like the Natan doesn't do well because we don't even get to the late game. We don't even get to see him get to that item power spec before the game is either over or it's like way too one-sided already.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually just, this is totally out of the realm of things, but I'm just curious, what is your role, Eterna? Because I
My
feel
role?
like, yeah, what is your role?
Yes.
Are you a roam? Are you a mid player? Mage? Mage. I would probably say mage.
I'm a jungler.
You're a jungler?
Yeah.
What heroes are you playing in the jungle?
I play the assassins at the moment. I haven't gotten used to the utility junglers yet. So I
Okay,
play
so
Ling.
whoa.
Fanny, okay. I'm not that great at the Fanny. You would know, right? It's a very high mechanic hero. But like Lancelot, I play.
And Ling isn't?
It Fanny's harder.
Yeah, that's okay.
You have to
Okay.
really like memorize the placements of the walls to, get the
Yeah.
chords in.
I wouldn't have guessed you to be a jungler, but that's great. And I would say, like, and speaking of junglers, and now that we're in the women's league, waiting for them to kind of get situated and set up here to head into that first draft, are they going to be pulling those out as well, like what we saw for the men's? There was no utility, Eterna. I think the most utility that we probably saw in the jungle was the fact that it was either an Akai or maybe it was a Barrett's here and there. But like we're so used to seeing that typical matchup with like Fredrin, but he was banned out quite a bit, of course. Sometimes he was just left through, and it was these teams just being like, yeah, let's just roll with the assassin jungles, and that's what they went with. So I feel like if you were talking earlier about certain regions have like certain play styles, I would say that the African region so far, from what I've seen, has I don't know if I would say Indo, but I would say almost close to maybe like a Malaysian play style with a little like twist to it. Because you remember how like Malaysia, they had like this Lungar, I think is what they would call it, like Lungar play style. It was very like controlled, chaotic type thing. That's what I'm seeing so far from like Africa.
And they're also unorthodox.
Exactly. That's what that's why I'm saying. Like it kind of reminds me of them with like their own flavor to it, their own twist.
Yeah. So maybe that's what we'll be expecting today. But I have to admit that I'm not a jungler. I was like,
wait, what? So you're not a jungler? You're not?
I'm a mid laner.
Okay. I was gonna say. There's no way. Not to downplay your mechanical skill, Turner. Like I think
No,
we played
fine.
like one or two ranked games in the past.
It's fine.
But yeah, I don't remember you ever picking up a Ling or trying a Fanny. So
wow. Nice is so nice that he would like believe that kind of thing. So that kind of tells you something about Naisu, guys.
what? That I'm gullible?
I didn't want to put it like that.
No,
but...
I'm.
yes.
Hey, Eterna, I would not count you out for being able to play jungle. So I'll leave it at that. Let's jump into the draft here for game one.
Let's go. And
what?
Wow. Okay. Game number 1 in this best of 3 series, ladies and gentlemen. Our first drafting phase in this matchup between Djibouti versus Egypt. And we already have a Bane banned out. Again, right? You mentioned unorthodox. You mentioned out of the box picks and bans, and a Balman to boot as well. Is this something that you've been seeing?
We have seen Ballman once throughout the men's qualifier, and I'm trying to remember if that was. I think it was It was Lil something. I don't want to say it was Lil Jeff, but it was one of those names like that. And the Ballman ended up working decently. Interesting to see that it's actually banned out. Dairoth makes sense. Vexana as well being banned out. Vexana is still great mid lane. As a mid laner, I'm sure you can agree to how good she can be in the lane. Roger, this is, I would say so far, Roger has been flexed quite a bit in both gold lane and jungle for the African region so far. This is interesting bans though for the first phase to kick off the women's league here. Very interesting to go for it. So now I'm wondering what's priority because Louis Yi's open. So is Chip.
Louis, Chip, Natan, Moskov, Matilda, Harith.
That's a whole
There are
lot.
so many meta picks that are actually up in the air right now for both of these teams to pick up. So you're right? With the Angela being banned out, it makes sense, right? There's a lot of flexibility to it. There's a lot of flex in the role you would utilize it, right? We've seen Angela in the mid lane, we've seen Angela in the roam, but I saw a hover over here. Are they going for Arlet? Are they going for Iritel? All right, so they lock in the Arlet here for Djibouti. And the Arlet is still a flex, right? We've seen the Arlet being played in the roam. We've seen the Arlet being played in the EXP lane. So that's something of a card that, of course, this team can utilize over their opponent, as the Fredrin has been locked in early as well.
I'm pretty sure this is like the first time, at least, again, I have to specify, the first time at least on the online streamed games, because there's games happening offline, that Fredrin we're actually going to see played. So this is, one of those heroes that we were talking about consistently about the fact that, utility, he is the guy. Like, he's still the one to go with. And this could be the Matilda actually locked in too. This would be great for complementing the Fredrin actually. So it looks like that's going to be locked in. This is two very strong picks here.
I agree. The Fredrin's so good at utility and objective take, and the fact that they picked up the Matilda will help the maneuvering of this Fredrin that is quote-unquote a little less mobile than something like the Martis, by the way, that has been picked up now by Djibouti, as well as the Mia. So I'm assuming that this Mia will go into the gold lane. And I don't think I've seen the Mia in so long. What are your thoughts on the Mia? Is she a early game gold lane? Does she need more time to get those items? Like, what's going on here?
Definitely, I would say it takes a little bit longer. A little bit longer to build up, of course. But I think it's like I don't know. I don't want to say complete glass cannon because glass cannon for me is Ixia. But Mia, like once that ultimate's down, it's kind of tough to work with, and of course you roll with Inspire, but the damage potential is great, especially on an AoE kind of aspect eventually when you're hitting multiple targets. But also, again, as we were leading into this, in turn I was saying Moskov was not seen like at all the past few days. So now finally he comes to play, and it's up against a Mia in the lane, in the gold lane. So this is actually going to be an interesting matchup, already gold lane. But I think like the upper hand, of course, too, is the fact that your Matilda just provides so much, to just the team overall, like early game to late game especially. And one interesting little thing that we also saw yesterday was the way that the Matilda was played here. Of course, they like to opt for focusing mark on some of their roamers. We even saw this with the Tigreal, by the way. We saw a focusing mark on a Tigreal. And so that was the same case with the Matilda. I'm wondering if they'll go with the same emblem kind of setup here for this. But right now, as we get through that second ban phase, interesting that finally the Louis Yi is banned out. Chip is still open, though, too. Not sure if they want to, either of the teams wanted to pick that up, but the fact that Matilda's already locked in, we could see, because like my question here is, where's the Arlot going? This is a hero that fits into so many roles, has actually worked really well in the roam, could also go XP though.
Yeah, that's the flex, right? That, of course, Djibouti has over Egypt at the moment. So that's a big question. And I think they're inking at the fact that it still should be more placed into the EXP lane, right? That's why we see the Florian being taken out as well, taking away the healing, the regeneration capacity that the Florian does offer in these team fights. a lot of the times there have been miscalculations because of her ultimates, right? So if they want to go in for Martis, perhaps it still can kind of complement that kind of play style. But it looks like the Faramis is going to be taken out of the board as well here, denying that away. So they're starting to limit in this mid lane hero pool, I would say. But
Yeah.
it looks like they're hovering over Novaria or the Lunox or the Herald.
There's so much.
Okay.
Okay,
Lilia.
Lilia. That was like a good reminder in terms of like how much is actually left open. You know, like there's so many great options, and this is interesting. Djibouti's actually going to go with this again. Alucard, we see him for the second time coming up for this match, which makes me wonder. So is this a XP lane Alucard roam Arlot, or is there going to be some kind of switch going on here? I know they're still both Rock of the Retributions, but Nana also, and then the Yu Zhong. By the way, Yu Zhong has 100% win rate so far, like throughout the men's. I'm wondering if that will be replicated here for the women's, but there's the lineups here, Eterna.
Hang on, Naisu. There's no Retribution being taken off.
Oh, there we go. They got the double. Are they going with the double? They can't.
Exactly. Are they going for a double Retribution strategy here? Is this what we're going to be seeing in our opening match of our best of 3 today?
Let's go.
Oh, man. A double Retribution. See, I don't know how that's going to work, right? Because the users, the holders of the Retribution will not be able to get farm in the lanes before minute number 5. Do you think this can work?
This might be some big brain strats, Eterna. Like I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I personally have not seen a double Retribution in competitive play. Maybe it's been out there, you know, in previous seasons or something, or previous tournaments, but so far this is a first for me. And now I want to know how exactly they're going to be able to utilize this, and if it was actually like part of the plan. That's my thing.
I've seen it a few times in MPL ID. Not this season, but I think 2-3 seasons ago. I think it was picked up once by Onyx, and there was like another team that picked it up. And the idea is that you have more leeway when it comes to buffs, neutral objective takes. And it is! It's a double Retribution, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into the first game of this best of 3 series between Djibouti as well as Egypt. And surprise, surprise, a double Retribution meta here coming in from Djibouti in the first game of the series.
Okay, so the game plan, it looks like he's going to stay top side too. Oh, wow. Already, Velvet able to get the first blood. It looked like, yeah, top side. You had that play, and it looks like might get another kill. Double kill for Velvet in the mid lane. What is happening here? Velvet already, I know we missed it on screen, but Velvet gets 2 kills, and then Yol gets 1 in the mid lane. That's a huge start already for Egypt.
Completely, right? And Egypt is going in for a draft that's very, very early game heavy, right? We have the Matilda, we have the Lilia with the fast wave clears, so you're gonna see a lot of fast rotations happening, and you could actually see that coming through, right? The Fredrin already going in for the invades, absolutely no punish whatsoever in that top side of the enemy jungle, and it's looking kind of bleak right now for Egypt. Wait a second.
Yeah, Oboro's gonna have to get out of there. Does have that passive, so Saiyan in trouble. Velvet massive on this Yu Zhong. Once again, 100% win rate for this hero. And we saw this previously in the last series, but it was a Dairoth. Now 3-0 for Velvet.
It's a 4-0 in total, right? And it looks like Djibouti, they want to look for a different trade here in the bottom side. We can see that Mohab is caught low. He actually gets taken out here.
It's taken out. She's going to be working on the next one. They're going to force him back here too. Still going. Retribution going to be used. Dexy will be on the run, so forced out. Now Susain in trouble, gets caught out. Again, 0-3. Susain on this Alucard, what is going on here?
And it's not looking too great, right? Because usually the Alucard wants to go in for a snowball, but it's been completely denied away from Egypt. As it looks like another pick in the bottom side.
Another pick on the bottom side. It's 2 versus 1. And that is a massive lead now for Egypt. 0-7. And now on the top, once again, going to force the fight. Moaheb under Velvet. Not going to be the one you want to fight, as Velvet gets the kill there.
Super, super unfortunate right now for Djibouti. And it looks like they have absolutely no say in the neutral objective contest. Meanwhile, that's going to be a kill over again for this team.
Yeah, that's now 0-10. That was also a turtle taken now in the mid lane. Still going to be wanting to fight. Velvet is there. Has the dragon form. Not even going to need it, though. Gets the monster kill. And one more under the turret as Oboro goes down. This is massively one-sided for Egypt right now.
Extremely, right? And it's so difficult, right? Because the Mia at the moment is 1k below of the Moskov. Gonna need a little bit more time to get into those items, but look at Dexy.
Dexy looking for the Decimate. Not going to be able to find it, though. Gets whittled down and taken out. This time by Sunlight. And still the onslaught continues as they look for another, as Moaheb down again in the jungle. Eterna, this is tough because at this point in the game, again, 14 kills on the board. 4 minutes in, still looking in the bottom lane again. It looks like they're just going to line up here. 4 names of Velvet 2, still working on the tier 2. This could be looking like a quick game for Egypt.
14 make it 16 now, right? In the 4th minute of the game, and they're taking a look at these second tier turrets already, dishing out the damage. It looks like a legendary has been picked up. Meanwhile, 2 more picks fall and are given over to Egypt, who have complete control over this game in this 4th minute.
This is, this one's, I mean, what is there to really break down here, right? Egypt is just completely dominating, and there's nothing that Djibouti can really do with this. And you can see just the level gap, the gold gap, how apparent it is at this point in the game. You know, 5 minutes in, there's really nothing that Djibouti can do. You know, the snowball has gotten out of control unless a massive mistake happens. But look at that. So Sane will go down as well in the mid lane. It looks like Egypt just wants to go ahead and end this as Soraya goes down. Oboro to follow, put more bodies on the board. And they still want to fight in the mid lane. Gonna cap it out once again. Moab goes down. Dexy next on the chopping block. Tries to get something and gets a double for Sunlight. And they just want to run it down mid at this point, put the pressure where they can, not letting Djibouti get anything at this point. A massive one-sided game here.
26 kills in 5 minutes, Naisu. And it looks like Egypt are looking in for more neutral objectives on the board.
Oh, he goes in. Moaheb. There's not much you can do there. Now sitting at 0-9, the vengeance, but can't do anything. And so with that, Egypt will continue this dominant showing again. Not sure if either of us have really seen this kind of one-sidedness, and it looks like Djibouti might just have to watch as their base gets taken down completely already. 6 minutes in, it doesn't even look like Egypt wants the turtle. They'll just continue to get the turrets. They have to work on it. Moabheb will go down. It looks like Oboro's going to be next, and they have the passive. But still, they could just be looking to rush the game with this kind of lead, this kind of one-sidedness. And another body will fall for Dexy. Names working on the next. And he jumps one in again as Yol gets the kill. It looks like they just want to end the game before even taking anything, as Soraya is just going to stay up top and another body falls, and that's going to be it. The quickest game so far. 6 minutes and 33 seconds as Egypt takes game 1.
6 minutes! I don't think I've ever seen a 6-minute game before. That was absolutely brutality coming in from Egypt against Djibouti. And it looks like that the double retribution, it didn't pay off for Djibouti to the very end, right? 6 minutes in, you could already feel like the Alucard was suffering from the fact that he was holding on to the retribution. He was so many levels below in EXP. And, you know, granted, with how one-sided things were, the Martis still was able to maintain a level, like a 1-level gap between her and the Fredrin. So if they wanted to look for neutral objectives, there were options to go for. But with Alucard being so far behind, it was so difficult. They couldn't look for anything. And Egypt, they were just so dominant being able to be so aggressive into the jungle. Wow, I'm just so impressed with Egypt.
I don't I just like I don't understand what happened, Eterna. I mean, it started off with the 2 retributions. And again, I don't know if that was a mistake or that was part of the game plan. I know you mentioned, hey, there has been teams that have pulled this off, right? The 2 retributions is not a 100% guaranteed troll. Like, it's not. But this time around, it just didn't. It actually, there was no step in the right direction at all. And the reason why I say that is because it started with me building up that, hey, this Yuzhong has a 100% win rate through the men's qualifier.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Velvet gets like I think it was a double early on. Yo got one in the mid, and then just like snowballed out of control at that point. Because again, you actually said this very well, Eterna, and maybe some people don't realize this, but the 2 retributions, and then you have the Alucard with a retribution go up top. That's why the level gap was there. Like, you're not going to get any XP to work with, you know, and then you're just unfortunate going against Velvet, who had a massive game on this Yuzhong. It's really, really tough to find any winning kind of opportunity there with that kind of lineup game plan and how one-sided it was. Again, this was a 6.5-minute game. You know, that's crazy. I mean, they knew they had them like in their they basically knew they had the game in the bag for Egypt, and they were like, well, we might as well move on to the next one. They just went right for the base.
6 minutes. I mean, for sure, right? Because all 3 lanes from the side of Egypt were winning. The fact that you have a Matilda, a Fredrin, and a Lilia with that much wave clear against something like the Nana, who does have decent wave clear, but it's not as quick as somebody like the Lilia. Already was kind of very difficult in the mid lane, so they couldn't really control the rotations towards the side lanes. Couldn't help out Mardis in the EXP lane. No, couldn't help the Alucard in the EXP lane either, with the Yuzong, like you mentioned, already snowballing out of control with the early 2 kills already given to her. And then meanwhile, in the gold lane, you have the Moskov, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, the Moskov also needs a little bit more time to get to those items, but the laning against the Moskov is a little bit difficult because of his basic attack that goes in for Pierce, right? So of course the Mia would have a little bit more of a difficult time as well. So you had all 3 winning lanes for the side of Egypt, and that's exactly what you get when that happens, right? A 6-minute and 33-second game, if I'm not mistaken, and it was, just give them a round of applause, right? For, Djibouti for being that courageous to try and experiment with the double retribution strategy, because not a lot of teams would actually go for that. And they tried it. It didn't work out. And definitely they will be utilizing that as a lesson for them towards the second game, because, ladies and gentlemen, to remind you, this is a best of 3. So there is still time for Djibouti to, come back to the drawing board and bring up and cook up something new.
Yeah, there's plenty of time, after a game like that, to kind of readjust here and get us situated, because I'll tell you what, Eterna, Egypt did not give Djibouti any time here to really think about game 1 after they went in with that draft and those battle spells. I have to, at least, like you said, you got to give props to Djibouti for what they try to do. And I was just thinking of, you mentioned Mia, the Soraya. It was like the last ditch effort of, you know what? I might as well split push on the top and try to get this turret down, because
she was close.
She was close. She was doing something. But again, how much damage do you have at 6.5 minutes in on a Mia, right? There's at that point, like I said, it was just better that, for Djibouti, when things kind of got out of hand early on, and by early on, I mean like 2 minutes in, it's tough to really come back through that, because of the fact too you have 2 retributions. And I'm just thinking, while we wait for this draft to come up in number 2, I'm trying to think like your best usage of being able to use 2 retributions that I can think of is really like being a nuisance in the enemy jungle. But even with some of the recent changes, that if you're in the enemy jungle, the way that can work and you're kind of waiting for the support of your team, that's the only way that I could see that working, especially the fact that it was an Alucard, which makes sense, because then you're thinking, all right, well, you can at least like hop over walls. You can utilize the retribution, try to steal some buffs away, try to delay some of the jungling. Like that in reality could actually work. But it makes me wonder again why they went right to I think it was the XP lane, you know? Like even the Mia went up to the XP lane, Soraya went up there. And so again, maybe there was just some miscommunication on what the game plan was. I'm all for experimentation and trying new things because that's so far what we've seen from the African Online Regional Qualifiers. And we've seen great experimentation work out wonders. Again, Yin Rome, for those people that missed it, you know, you missed the Yin Rome from the men's game on day 2. I highly suggest you guys watch that. It was a Yin Rome, a mid Hellcurt. That type of stuff makes you say, whoa, what is that? And then the way that they executed it and made it work makes you applaud that, right? And maybe again they go with the double retribution strategy, but they execute it better. You know, maybe they execute it better this time. I think you can only go up from here, Eterna. You know, after that game 1.
I get it, but you know, going back to that point, right? I actually don't know if it can work. Wait, so there's like a sliver of window of an opportunity that it could work, because if I'm not mistaken from the recent patch as well, under minute number 2, if you invade into the enemy jungle, you will be receiving like a % plus amount of damage to you. So
taken.
Yeah, so it's not going to be as easy as well, previous to different the previous seasons that we've seen the double retribution happening. So I don't know. I think maybe the double retribution was a little bit too much experimentation.
Something was up, yeah. I mean, it's like, again, that's why I was saying, like, I would actually love to see it, but execute it in the way that I expected it to be and not like go to a lane, because you're not going to get XP. Unless the plan was, Yu Zhong has 100% win rate, we're going to shut him down 2 versus 1, and that lane will be taken. But again, with the way things kind of unfolded, you just didn't get to see the game plan really get a chance, I feel like. So, you know, whether you want to see it again or not, I hope that one day we get to see double retribution actually work, because I think that adds like another kind of dynamic to the current meta. But it might be also just safer for Djibouti just to be like, you know what? Yeah, let's not do that. Let's go in with a different lineup. Let's get this composition going and, you know, make it through that first phase. Because one thing that I guess like a trend that we've seen so far from these teams out here in the African region is the snowball is like, I don't know, their snowball potential. It's kind of scary, Turner. I know we've talked about teams that have like death ball strategy, snowball strategy, and they have, that is their identity. I feel like this is the identity of the region. And that's why Egypt, when they got that, they didn't let go. It was like they went from 1 to 60 just like that, you know? And so that's one thing that I'm seeing. I think, I know this is way down the road, but this is why I'm actually excited too to see what happens in WEC when we get to Riyadh, you know, for the world Esports Championship, because this play style from Africa as a whole, as a region, is very refreshing and entertaining, and I think it's very fun to shake things up. And that's what I really enjoyed even last year at IESF, was how much difference you have in terms of like meta from the different countries.
I'm actually curious to see how this African meta will actually shape with the different regions and their own play styles, right? How will it work against regions that are a lot more disciplined or a lot more, you know, straightforward with their gameplay? Will it be chaotic for them to see that kind of thing? Will it be catching them off guard, or will something else happen, right? This is something great that is actually a big opportunity for us as well, to kind of witness all these kinds of regions just really shape up their own meta and how they will interact with one another at a certain point, right? But again, right, back to your point, there was like a recent patch that hit that I think made it a little bit more difficult for teams to kind of go against teams that are already really leading in the early game, right? When you get that
Yeah.
snowball, when you already got a big lead in the early game, it's very difficult to turn the game around. So that's what we're kind of seeing as well here in the African region, with Egypt picking up how many kills? 16 kills in the first 4 minutes of the game, not even 14.
Yeah.
4 minutes in the game, and you can see how difficult it was. So coming into the second game, I want to know what kind of differences they're going for, right? Because the Arlet in the first pick of the first phase was already great, right? It was a good flex pick. They can utilize it to figure out their strategies later on when they start to see and feel what Egypt is kind of building and brewing, especially with the Fredrin and the Matilda and the Moskov. So you kind of already get an idea of what strategy they want to bring. And then they bring out the Mia. So is this a power pick? Is this like what's the strategy with the Mia as well?
Man, you know, I had the same questions earlier when we saw like Hanabi locked in, priority and stuff. And then, you know,
Did it work?
again, it didn't. It didn't
Oh.
work out so well. We even saw it yesterday, like Hanabi pop up. Unfortunately, Hanabi has not, I don't, if I recall, she has not won a game yet. So even with the Mia, like, my thing is, I'm happy to see these heroes pop up. It's just unfortunate that they haven't found their win. Like I said, I'm a supporter of all these non-meta heroes coming to play and, you know, trying to make it work. Because again, you have to also think about the fact that, in general, from what we heard also from the interviews, right, the African region here, African qualifiers, what we've got to learn from the interviews, the players, is that there is this, you know, this community and this fan base for it and everything, and they really enjoy the game Mobile Legends. And I would assume that because of the growing impact that it has, the growing community that it has, maybe at the same time, the women's leagues are also just kind of experimenting with what their playstyle wants to be. I'm sure they see stuff, you know, going on here for the other tournaments and everything, but it could just be purely when you pick up the game and you fall in love with a certain hero, you just want to play that hero. You know, that was me. Like, I always use me and Gord as the example because, again, I picked up the game early on. I picked up Gord. I played it constantly, and I fell in love with that hero. And that's all I played, right? So this could be something similar to that extent where you were talking about the Mia. This time around, though, it would be kind of curious. Do they actually prioritize this in the draft, you know, for this game number 2 now that we're in the draft?
For sure. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome you into the drafting phase of game number 2. And remember, we're headed to match point in this best of 3 series, and already a very different ban coming through, right? We see the Cho, we see the Fredrin coming through for Djibouti. Meanwhile, again, the Dairoth being banned out in the first phase, and the Luoyi. So already big differences. But the one thing that I really wanted to share earlier on, Naisu, is that I saw Xavier in the mid lane twice in the female scene.
You saw Gojo? Oh,
Yeah,
in the female team
Gojo.
or the men's team?
Female.
Okay.
And it has a 50% win rate. So it worked once.
Okay.
So these comfort picks, when you know the hero so well, when you understand the calculations so well, it might just work. So we'll see what happens here as Anana gets banned as well.
Okay. We're gonna get the answer to our question right now, Eterna. Is this gonna be the Mia locked in first pick once again? It looks like it will be. Boom, right away. Question answered. Mia first pick, Inspire. Now let's see if again they kind of opt for this double retribution thing. I would love to see them not do that, but they already started with the Mia. They can go that way. And I'm wondering too for Egypt, you know, like Egypt, to be honest, they don't have to change much. The fact that they're not going to have the Fredrin here this time around means they have to change a couple things, but there's the Matilda once again. Moskov comes through. Oh, what's the answer here, Eterna? I'm kind of worried already.
Oh, are they going for a Saber? A Saber jungle? Is that the answer?
Is it the answer? I don't know.
I mean, they
I don't
locked
have
in
the answers for
Benedetta
you.
already. Okay. I was
right.
like so excited to see the Saber, but all right. We get the Benedetta and the Terizla, and this is already quite interesting, right? Because usually we'd see both of these heroes being placed in the EXP. So which hero is going to be flexed here? Are we going to see Terizla mid? Are we going to see a Benedetta jungler? There's just so many questions that Egypt has yet to kind of answer as well. So again, that layer of flexibility coming in from Djibouti here in the first phase of the drafts.
Right. Oh, I was gonna say something, but then I see the Benedetta hover over the Retribution. Again, it was Dexy that had that Levi, the Martez earlier. So we'll see if this time around they just roll with this. I actually like the first phase. Given the fact, hey, Mia gets picked up first pick, that's fine. Maybe this time around, Soria gets to do what she wants to do in the lane. But I think as we get through the second phase of the bans, that's where it's important to see if this is going to be more of a traditional lineup. The fact that you have a Benedetta jungle, if this is going in the jungle, we've seen this a couple times, like in the history of competitive play, and it can work actually really well. But it really relies on the setup potential, because you want to be able to farm up pretty quickly. You want to be able to use your Electro Final below. And again, most people know the combination with Benedetta is with the Petrify. So when you lose that and you're slotted into the jungle position, you really have to have the finesse to pull it off and, land those just great moments that you see with Benedetta, using that eye for an eye, Electro Final blow. And I think that's why they have the Terizla too here at Turna. But we're now through the second ban phase. Let's see what the answer is going to be here to round these out.
What we do know is that there's a respect ban, right, coming through, with a Lilia being taken off the board, and easy flex here. A Death gets picked up in the mid lane, and a Kufra. I mean, you talked about setup, right? And that's exactly what a Kufra can offer. A lot of CC in his kit.
Whoa!
Wait, what? With the Lilia? Wait, where are these heroes going? Is this a Lilia mid?
Well, you know what? It could be Layla in the mid, I think, if they want to go there. This is, I like the Kufra. I was all for the Kufra. That's locked in. You got great setup, great front to back protection as well. You can use the penalty zone for defense or offense if you want to. But now you got basically like double marksman, unless Layla somehow goes some interesting, weird, experimental build. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're just going to fight with the range that she brings to the table here. And it's only slightly. Well, when I see Layla, it's like you get these flashbacks, because for some reason, even in like 25 plus stars for Mythic in the Philippines, you still see Layla pop up. And I don't know why, because usually it doesn't work out well. But maybe they have a better plan here for this game. I like this lineup better though, Eterna. Overall, I like the lineup better for Djibouti here.
One of the worst things about the Layla is her range, right? And technically in the mid lane, she does have clear, but the problem is rotations, right? What spell was she opting for earlier? Was it a sprint?
I think so, yeah.
The Layla is great with her range, but the problem is with these kinds of heroes, like with the Mia as well, there's no escape spell, and that's one of the main problems. And if you're in the mid lane, the point of having a really good mid lane is that you can utilize the priority to be able to rotate and help out those side lanes, whether it be the gold lane, where it be setting up for the neutral objective take with the EXP lane. And I'm worried about the Layla because of her lack of mobility.
I am worried about the Layla in general because, again, she's all about the range, and she's one of those marksmen that does need quite a bit of time to build up.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, they have two, because there's a Mia there as well. But who knows? I think if you really just want to break it down with the lineup they have here, Eterna, honestly, first step right off the bat, if I had to mark one checkbox, just get past the 2-minute mark without like having anyone go down and die here. But we're jumping in.
We're jumping in, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 in this best of 3 series. Egypt already holding one game over Djibouti right now, so we are at match point. Let's see if Djibouti can move forward at this phase of the tournament, as already a lot of damage has been placed onto the Kufra, and that's first blood, Naisu, in the first minute of the game.
It didn't use the Revitalize. I was hoping at least the Revitalize would be used. You know, there's 2 over there. But it looks like this could be a possibility for what a preview we saw for the previous game, as Soraya is going to go down. Oboro, it's a double marksman gold lane, and Oboro will get taken down too. Double kill already. Eterna, the first checkbox that I mentioned is not getting checked here.
Yeah.
It's 3 kills now for Egypt under the 2-minute mark.
What we do know about Djibouti is like they love their doubles, right? They use double retribution in game number 1. But wait a second, Mawaheb again getting caught super low. What is going on? Egypt wreaking havoc left, right, and center.
Oh, man. You know, when you're seeing that kind of unfold, just like we did in the first game of Eterna, it's... all you can say is Egypt is going to punish this. It's basically happened in the first game, the way that it was, the way that it kind of unfolded. And for Djibouti at this point, if more members go down, like they even try to get in this zone of this turtle, it's going to be very difficult, you know. We'll see once again. Okay, it looks like they do. Velvet there hits the level 4. Dexy's going to be the one to fall as well. Next, Mawaheb now in the mid lane. They are battling out, but that's going to be the turtle secured by Sunlight. So more bodies added to the list, plus the objective. And it looks like there might be some revenge here. Oh, Spear of Destruction comes in. Here's Names, though. Killing spree once more, but we'll get the 1 kill. But, you know, they have the backup from Nusi. They're going to jump in. Double already for Names. Again, a dominating early game here for Egypt.
It's very unfortunate that they had to lose Dexy right before they went in for that neutral objective take, right? That's going to be more space coming through for Egypt, and another kill given over.
Yeah. Yep. Mawaheb is going to go down too. And as you were saying, you know, actually hold on, they still want more. Sora down. Final slash going to be used, and Oboro would be the next target. Stays alive, but stays in the turret. That might be a mistake here. Level 6, Sunlight making his way. I think Oboro is going to be the next one on the target list as you see it under the turret in the tier 2 up the top side. Monster kill for Sunlight.
It's a 6k gold lead now in for Egypt. And talking about Snowball, right? 501 already, Names on the monster with Corrosion Sight, and they're going to go for more. That's another kill, Naisu, and it looks like they're looking for more here.
Looking for more. Swan Spawn going to be used. Everything is being thrown at him. So Sane goes down. And it's looking a lot like Game 1 Eterna. Same tempo, same speed being set here. 16 kills now under the 4-minute mark. Egypt is exactly where they want to be here, just like they did previously. And they won't be able to get anything. Djibouti now, Dexy trying to run under the tier 2, keeps alive for a little bit, takes a couple shots from Sunlight, but gets out with the guiding wind, and it won't be able to get the kill. So at least for Dexy will stay alive, but Mawaheb has yet to use the Revitalize that they brought on this Kufra. And now in the mid lane, once again, another dominating kill. So Zane drops down.
It looks like Egypt are just so great at punishing and looking for loopholes and opportunities, right? Because it looks like in the top lane as well, Velvet in this 2v1, they don't know, but 2 other members are coming. Wait, what?
Yep. Names, Velvet. You know, this is the thing, Eterna. Like, you don't even get to say much because there is just action everywhere, and it's just so one-sided once again with this amount of economic difference for Egypt right now. Talk about a strong team of women here for MLBB, and it looks like Mozane, Sosane, is going to go down in the dirt once again. Revitalized, not being used, and looks like Soraya is going to take the next one. Velvet will get the double. They might push it on Oboro, as Oboro is going to run back to base here. Egypt will continue on working on the turrets. They want to do exactly what they did before. Oboro gets shoved in the wall with the spear. Looks like it could be a kill as well. Oboro still a sliver of health. Mawaheb going to be the next one taken down in the jungle as Sunlight gets the kill. and they just try to hold on a little bit longer. Dexy in the mid lane, Electro final blow going to be used. Not having that petrify because of the retribution, still want to fight. Is this the turnaround time before them? So Zane once again will go down, but a huge final slash goes in through him, and still again Egypt comes out swinging. 27 kills at the 6-minute mark. Man, Djibouti, they have no hope right now as another member will go down.
Absolute dominance, absolute perfection coming through from Egypt. But it looks like Dexy wants to find a kill over, but they're not gonna get it. And Egypt picks up Sosane to make it all worse. 2 members from the side of Djibouti are gone, done and dusted, make it 3. And that's gonna be another double kill given over to Names. 31 kills in 6 minutes. I mean, we see the dominance coming through from Egypt in game number 2, but this time it will take a little bit longer for Egypt to end the game, Naisu.
Use the revitalize! Moab still won't be able to get it off, unfortunately. So Zane goes down too, but at least use the revitalize. The cannon comes out, they get a kill. Djibouti gets on the board as Sunlight fell. But now can they stay in the game? They've lasted longer than the previous one. 7 minutes in, it looks like Egypt wants to possibly punch this one in. They take a little bit longer. They're going to work on the turrets now. Not fully scaled up just yet. Mawaheb jumps in once again. They're going to have to fight it out with a swan song. Look at the damage. It's too much. The final slash as well on Aboro. And they'll go down. 3 gone. Electo final blow going to be used, but they're trying to tank it all. It's a double for Nusi. And it looks like Egypt will go ahead. Takes a little longer, but they'll sweep the series against Djibouti.
What a game! What a series! And it's official, ladies and gentlemen. Egypt have won game number 1, match number 1 against Djibouti in this best of 3. So dominant, so promising, a lot of potential for this team. And it looks like they are serious. They want to get their hands on the AEC as soon as possible.
Oof. Congratulations to Egypt. Very dominating from a showing here in the game 1. And again, you know, good try to Djibouti. Unfortunately, they weren't able to. Hey, they did get a kill at the end, but I think it's just, you know, it could just be an experience difference between the 2 teams. And it showed because even in the laning phase, you know, it was tough for them to pull off here.
And we're going to take a look at the highlights all the way from game number 1 as well. And right, I mean, at this point, already 3 kills over to Egypt. You can see the experience just seeping through, like you mentioned. And Sosane with the double retribution was not having a great time in his lane either, right? Still at level 1 as compared to Velvet at level 4. It was very difficult for him to kind of look for proper openings on the map, look for proper setups as well on the Alucard that naturally needs to snowball from the early game. And afterwards, at minute number 2, it's just the snowball coming through. It's like the Echo Express here coming through from Egypt over onto Djibouti.
Yeah, and I mean, the highlights here pretty much is a highlight reel for Egypt, you know?
Yeah.
And it was... Again, they pretty much knew what they were doing. I feel like this squad from Egypt probably has other tournament experience, and I know eventually we're gonna get to hear from them in one of the interviews after, you know, the highlights here. And that's one of the things I really want to know is what is their experience like? Because Egypt is obviously moving around the map in a very familiar way, I would say. Yeah, given the fact that, you know, Djibouti wasn't able to pull off what they wanted to when it came to their composition game plan, but Egypt, again, when you talk about the picks they drafted, the way they rotated early around the map, the timings that we're talking about, you know, this is stuff that you usually see in the current meta and on a competitive level. So I really would love to know how much experience this team from Egypt has, because we know that the men's team from Egypt has a lot, you know, and they're very experienced. And again, it's just they were able to come out with a very clean, dominating series for them in this 2-0.
For sure. Like, have you ever seen a 6-minute game? Because I've never seeing a 6-minute game. Sure, Djibouti was able to kind of prolong the game in game number 2 to 7 minutes plus, but a 6 to 7 minute game average in a best of 3 is not something that you see every day in the MLBB competitive scene. And we're seeing that being played through from Egypt. And now we're taking a look at game number 2, and it was a very similar story, right? We don't usually see two gold laners in the gold lane, which is why we were kind of wondering through the drafting phase, a Lilia being picked up in the last phase of the drafts. Where is this going? Is this a Layla in the mid lane? Is this a Layla going in the jungle? Like, what's going on with their draft? And it turns out they opted to go for two gold laners. And unfortunately, with the meta right now, with the patch that keeps coming through, it just doesn't work as well, because you'll have to split in the gold. You'll have to split in the EXP that both of these gold laners, both these heroes, the Mia and the Layla, really require the farm, the gold, to get to that power spike. And because they had to split it too, it was just a lot more difficult. And Egypt, with the experience, they were able to see that as an opportunity to punish, and we were able to see that going through time and time again. Here in the mid lane, like you mentioned, they had the Revitalize. They could have used it in the early phase, right? The Revitalize heals in the early stage of the game does make a difference in these skirmishes and in these team fights, but Egypt, they just knew when to go in. They caught Djibouti off guard over and over, that they weren't even ready to pop in the Revitalize.
Yeah, this, you know, I was waiting for the double Revitalize composition to break out. It's like, I don't know, double retreat, double Revitalizes. So it was the play here for Djibouti. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make either work. And again, Egypt just looked like they really knew what they were doing. And, I mean, even for Dexy on this Benedetta jungle, it was interesting to see. And if you watch the way that Dexy moves around, it looks like, you know, Dexy was really trying to set things up if they could, but again, what can you do with a gap that's 1 to 38 at this point in the game? You know, and you really, as I said in the draft, once that Benedetta was locked in, you really needed to round up that lineup with some tanky durability, you know, and they had that. Like, they had a Trizza, they had a Kufra, but unfortunately, again, just like we saw in game 1, the snowball started way too quick for them to even utilize the lineup that they had. And that was that. You know, Egypt just set things up so well, and there was no coming back from it because, like you said, when was the last time that you saw such a quick game? And that's one of the things is typically, and depending on the play style, most teams really kind of stay controlled until the first hurdle. So if I was Djibouti here and, you know, they go at and they want to take it as a learning experience, you know, the one is getting that composition kind of like more fitting. Again, doesn't have to be complete meta, but, you know, we saw like the gold lane was not in a solo situation. Like, they had to kind of adjust from there, and just being in a position where they don't have that many deaths or mistakes being made early on. Like, wait for that first turtle at least, you know, and then duke it out. Like, we know this region loves to fight. We know they love that chaos and they want to just go and brawl it out. But, you know, you gotta get some of that XP and that gold first, those items.